All right, what is up, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Help Me Understand podcast. My name is JK, and I am kicking off episode number 176 of Help Me Understand. Before getting into today's very short episode to talk about a simple language shift that was very helpful to me in order to get an understanding of where my foundation was, I want to take a moment, as always, to say thank you for choosing to press play on Help Me Understand. You certainly have no shortage of content that you can consume, whether it's a podcast like this one, a YouTube video, or anything in between. Social media, there's so many other different forms of entertainment that you could be consuming right now. So I truly never take it for granted that you chose to press play on the Help Me Understand podcast. So let's go ahead and get into today's episode. This one is coming to mind specifically because of the reset program that myself and Coach Anita are in the middle of. We are currently in, officially, this would be week number 2, but it's really the third week of the program. Why I hesitate on that a little bit is because we first started off with an intro week, and then we kicked off our different phases. We're going to be going through 3 different phases of 2 weeks each, and we're going to be working on helping folks understand where their foundation is of eating well, then their foundation of sleeping enough, and then their foundation of exercising regularly, figuring out what's the foundation for that. So this is very front of mind for me right now because not only are we coaching other people through this particular challenge, both Anita and I are participating in this challenge by setting commitments for ourselves along with coaching other folks through the level of consistency that they are implementing with their own commitments. So what we've been doing is for the past couple of weeks, and we'll actually wrap up this particular week with a call coming up tomorrow. As the time that I'm putting post this is going to post on Saturday. So we have a call on Sunday, and it's our first big check-in point after running the 2-week phase of getting an understanding of what does a foundation of eating well mean to you, you being that person that's a participant. So what we do is over that 2-week period, we have each person, and again, Anita and I are both doing the same thing. We have each person commit to 2 specific habits and or commitments. They're really interchangeable because you're committing to the habit. We have them commit to those 2 things and then track their completion or incompletion of those things over a 2-week period. And most importantly, we also are having a check-in where they're submitting a check-in form to both Anita and I to get an understanding of what worked well, what didn't work well, where do you think your opportunities were, where did you feel strong in your systems that helped you implement that particular habit. So what comes to mind for me, and I'll share with you the 2 commitments that I made when it came under the habit of eating well. So the 2 commitments that I made was that each day I would have 1 or more meals where I wasn't looking at a screen while I was eating. Some folks will refer to that as attentive eating, an attentive eating strategy where you're taking the time to really pay attention to what you're eating, savoring the taste, as opposed to being in a scenario where you're looking at your phone, you're doing work. So that's something that can be fairly common for me is that I'm in front of my computer working on client programs, working on training programs, reading a study, something like that, as I'm also eating at the same time. So my commitment was, or one of my eat well commitments was to have 1 or more meals each day where I wasn't looking at a screen. So I would either listen to a podcast, I would read a book or a magazine. That's kind of a funny story. If you're in the reset program and you saw my post today about reading the magazine, then you know the funny part about that. Or just do nothing at all. Just sit and enjoy the meal and good to go. So that was one of my commitments when it came to eating well. Then my second commitment for eating well was including vegetables in 2 or more separate meals. So my reason for picking that particular commitment was because when it comes to getting in vegetables pretty regularly, I am definitely somebody who is getting better than I have been, let's say, over the past couple of years. This year specifically, I've worked to improve my food quality with my nutrition coach. So that's been something that we've been really focused on, and he's helped provide an extra layer of accountability around that. And one of the things that I was noticing as I've done that is from time to time, what I would do is if I set a particular target of I'm going to get in, let's say, 3 servings of vegetables, I would get 2 servings of vegetables in at one meal and then one in the other. Or let's say if it was 2 servings of vegetables, I would just do two, like double up in one meal. And even though I had the opportunity and the resources available to put veggies in another meal, I would just skip it and be like, well, I already got my 2 in for the day, or I already got my 3 in for the day, so I don't really need to add anything there. So I was very strategic about picking my commitment being getting vegetables in at 2 separate meals or snacks throughout the day. And the verbiage that I used for both of those commitments was a particular number or more. So for example, with the vegetables, it's getting vegetables in at 2 or more meals or snacks throughout the day. For the screenless meal, it was 1 or more meals where I'm not looking at a screen each day. And I have to give credit to a acquaintance of mine. His name is Ray Ceffardini, and I believe he still goes by My Coach Ray. Back in the 2020/2021 days when Clubhouse was really popping. If anybody knows, then you definitely know. Back when Clubhouse was really popping, I ended up in his one of the rooms that he was running. I don't remember exactly how I navigated there, how the algorithm took me there. It may have actually been initially from a 75 hard group, accountability group, and then he was in that group, and so then I went into his room, I believe they were called at the time, and he would have calls, these calls, I want to say multiple times a week at, I believe, 6 a.m. I could be off on that. However, the point is, during a one of the particular calls that we were having, Ray really talked about the importance of using the or more language versus the at least language. And Ray is well versed and certified in NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. So from my perspective, he has a really keen sense of paying attention to the importance of the words that people use. And if you know anything about me or have listened to at least a couple of the Help Me Understand episodes, you are probably well aware that I am all about like paying attention to word choice. Word choice matters. Don't take that to mean that I don't ever say anything that I probably shouldn't say or doesn't come across well. That's not the point. It is just that language matters, and each word that is spoken is progressing some sort of message, be it positive or negative. So one of the things that Ray had called out in the group, and I don't remember if it was something that I said or something that somebody else said when we were going around the room to talk about something we were committing to for the day, was, and I don't remember the specific goal, so I'll use my goal for the reset and give you the scenario. So say that I was in that room and I had said, I'm going to have vegetables in at least 2 meals. His pushback on that and the thing that he called out, which was super helpful to me, and I've now taken this on and then carried it forward, is that when you use language, and this is my perception of or translation of what he shared, so it's not like word for word verbatim. My translation of what he shared is when you use language like at least 2, then you are basically training yourself to believe that you've accomplished what you need to accomplish and that the end point is the 2. Versus if you use language like 2 or more, then you are setting your floor, you're setting your foundation at 2 and giving yourself permission and maybe even encouragement to take that even further than just the 2. So again, in looking at that language shift, I could take it in terms of exercise also, because I have now taken this and use this with clients also. Right now, very hectic time of the year for a decent amount of folks based on different schedules. Sickness is popping up a little bit more, less structure, all the things. So I have a few clients who are finding it difficult, or actually most of them are pretty much ahead of the game here. They knew in advance this was going to be a time where an hour and 15 minutes may be kind of hard to come by. So what we did was provide some options of workouts that they could do when they could create 15 minutes or more to train. And I specifically reached out to my clients to ask, how much time can you allot? So can you allot 15 minutes? Can you allot 20 minutes? Okay, cool. So the idea wasn't around, okay, then after 15 minutes, cut it off, or after 20 minutes, cut it off. The specific language that I used with each and every one of them who took advantage of this was, okay, so what I want you to do is let's set the target at train for 15 minutes or more, or 12 minutes or more, or 20 minutes or more. So what I've found so far, and the ones that I've gotten the feedback from, is in just about every case, they were able to, air quotes, find about 30 minutes to train. So what we did is instead of using this language of I'm going to train for at least 15 minutes, it can for some folks, and I would definitely put my hand up as one of those people, it can train your brain to think, okay, once the 15 minutes is done, then I've accomplished what I needed to, and I'm going to shut that off. Where on the flip side, if I say 15 minutes or more, then while I do have for lack of a better way to put it, the self permission, or the self like confirmation of, okay, I have done what I needed to do, like I've met my initial commitment, and also it's okay if I get in about 5 minutes more because I do have that time available to me. It's not going to take me away from what I'm doing. Then be surprised at what else you can accomplish and how much further you can go. So to bring it back to how it's really relatable to what we've got going on in the reset program right now, with getting an understanding of building your foundation is not a box. It's a foundation. It's not a box for you to fit into. It's a box for you to stand on top of and then jump from there and build from there. So it's not that it's got some sort of a lock on the ceiling, something I've talked about in the past is this no ceilings strategy. Shout out Lil Wayne. I took that from him. If you know, you know. I'm not about putting ceilings on things. I'm about trying to establish where is the floor. And then as you become more consistent with certain habits, then you build the floor. So you make the floor higher, or you make it stronger, or both at the same time. And what that does is that raises, like literally and figuratively, raises your level of performance, and that moves you closer and closer to your goal. Okay, so that is what I wanted to hop on here and talk about right now. Full disclosure, for those of you who are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I recorded this entire episode in my car on my phone. I am not 100% sure that this will be able to translate over into a YouTube video. If it is able to if I'm still able to move it over into a YouTube video, I will. And this is also me putting a little bit of a deposit into the consistency bank account with getting episodes out with the regularity that I want to get them out with. So, little side note there. If you are watching this on YouTube, then fantastic. That means I figured it out. If you're not, that's okay, because it means maybe I wasn't able to figure it out. And still, I met the commitment that I had today. My intention today was and is put out one episode of the podcast. So it didn't matter if I was going to be able to have perfect conditions or not, because I wouldn't necessarily call these like the best conditions to record a podcast. I'm recording through some Bluetooth earbuds. So if you're wondering, that audio quality is a little bit different than usual, that's why. All right. So with that, I'm going to call this an episode. Thank you again for listening to this episode of Help Me Understand. Take care, and we'll talk to you next time.